All right, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoor Genetics Podcast. I'm your host, John. And today is Mother's Day. And in the idea of Mother's Day, I kind of figured we would do a little bit of a podcast sharing stories that I have with my mother, whether they involve the great outdoors and in a realm of hunting or fishing or even camping or all sorts of stuff that we've done. Don't want to make this long, but definitely wanted to take the time to, talk about Mother's Day. For those of you that don't know, going on 10 months ago, my mother actually passed away. And it's kind of hard to believe that it's encroaching up on a year. Really hard to believe that. And, it's something that's been kind of hard to get over. But, I get to look back and think about all the memories and all the things that's gone on in our life. And there's an opportunity for me to sit back and almost get a good laugh at some of the things that's happened, and there is a sense of pride that I take on when it comes to talking about Mom. And so we're just going to kind of get started here. First off, before we jump into this, I'd like to say Outdoor Genetics is sponsored by Chum Bums. Chum Bums is a great community. It's a social media platform that is set up, revolved truly around outdoorsmen. It doesn't matter what you're into. Fly fishing for steelhead. Are you wanting to go kayaking? Are you wanting to go hunting? What kind of hunting you wanting to do? Rifle hunting, bow hunting? You wanting to hunt in some crazy places? You want to go hunt something that you've never got to hunt before? Or maybe you're just looking to connect with new friends? Then Chum Bums might be the place for you. You need to go check out Chum Bums. Forget about all the drama and stuff that comes with all these other social media websites they're honestly trying to shut down, our freedom of speech, our right to, share the things that we love to do. And, in our realm, it's the hunting and fishing. And, these things are combated so hard on these other social media sites, and all the advertisements and things that come along with the other free social media sites. You ain't gonna have to worry about that on Chum Bums. Quite frankly, Chum Bums, any advertisement that you see on Chum Bums is gonna be affiliated with Chum Bums. Anything that you see in their market store, you're only going to find in their market store unless your buddy is cool enough to buy you something from the Chum Bums store and give it to you. You're not going to be going to Walmart and finding this stuff. A lot of these things are custom made, custom ordered to tailor for, or they're tailored for you, honestly. So check out Chum Bums. It is a membership platform, but the membership is literally next to nothing. So you have nothing to lose. Go check out Chum Bums if you're into the outdoor community at all, whether it be gardening, foraging, hunting, fishing, kite flying, kayaking, canoeing, boating. I don't care. Go check out Chum Bums. All right, guys. So this first story actually took place several years ago, back when I was just a young kid. Me and a buddy of mine, we did not have a truck or a car, or neither one of us had a driver's license at the time. And we thought it would be a good idea to legitimately try to go cow tipping one evening. And we knew that cow tipping was a joke. We knew it wasn't a real thing, but we're two boys growing up. We're country, we're redneck, we're big and bad. We're gonna go cow tipping. We're legitimately gonna go cow tipping, right? Or we're gonna attempt to go cow tipping. And we called the farmer that we wanted to go cow tipping on, and it's about 2:00 in the morning. We called him earlier that evening, I should say, and asked if we could go try it. He got a good laugh and he said go for it. So on our way out there, we had a little flashlight with us, and we're walking out there, and when we walk right beside this pond, and we look down and we see this beaver, and we reached down and we caught the beaver. As crazy as that sounds, we caught the beaver. It was a young beaver, but we caught the beaver with our hands. There was a part of us that was like, yeah, let's do it. The other part of us was like, no. But the part that said, yeah, let's do it, kind of like, you only live once kind of thing. Yeah, that was kind of what kicked into our mind at that time. And so we had caught that beaver, and we were on our way home, and we were really excited about this. It's not like we were trying to hurt the beaver. We definitely didn't want to harm it or injure it in any way. And I mean, by the grace of God, we were not eaten alive by this beaver. You know, beavers have a tendency to bite. Obviously, that's kind of what they do throughout their entire life, is chew and bite and nibble on all sorts of things, but definitely things that are a lot stronger than flesh. And needless to say, we were very lucky that we did not get chewed up badly by this beaver. It was a pretty long walk home, so you know we're alternating. You know, I'll carry the beaver for a little bit, and then he'll carry the beaver for a little bit, and then we're like, you know what? Let's just take the path of least resistance instead of trying to walk through the woods. Let's just get on this little back road and walk home. And after a good while of walking back home, we hit the road that was pretty close to the road that my house was on. And so as we're coming up to that corner, we start hearing barking, and of course, wouldn't you know it, this dog is not in his fence, and we get chased down the road with a beaver in our hands, getting chased by, if I remember right, 2 dogs actually. It was a big dog and some sort of little dog. Nevertheless, we make it down and out. We don't get hit by the dogs or bit by the dogs or the beaver, luckily, I should say. And we get back to the house, and I pick up the beaver, and I set my buddy down on the couch, and we were kind of chit-chatting real quietly because, like I said, at this time, it's like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, let me see the beaver. So I walked into my parents' room holding this beaver, and I kind of nudged my dad and said, hey, Dad, wake up. And Dad was like, what? And I said, wake up. He's like, what do you got? And I was like, turn on the light. And he turned on the light. When we turned on the light, about that time, my mama woke up. And, of course, at that point, both my parents were hooping and hollering, what are you doing with that in my house? Oh, my goodness, you boys are lucky to not be chewed alive. I mean, we're kind of getting griped out at the time, but it was so funny because the reaction on my parents' faces, especially my mom. Now, my mom has always been a big-time supporter of my lifestyle, the hunting and the fishing, growing up, even through school. You know, both of my parents, but I'm going to really say my mom. Anytime something big or a special or cool happened to me out in the woods, Mom was always wanting to hear about it. She was always wanting to talk to me about it. Now, whether it was to know I was doing things safe or she just legitimately wanted to know for her own satisfaction, whatever, I don't know. But she was always interested in my adventures, and you better believe anytime I brought fish home, anytime I brought an animal home, there was pictures, there was videos, and laughs, and everything that goes with it. And then, of course, you know, depending on what it was, you know, the good food that was sure to follow. Well, needless to say, Mom and Dad got up, and we went back into the living room. She called my brother and his wife at the time, and they ended up coming over to the house, and we ended up just letting this beaver walk around the living room. Now, I could not believe it for two things here. For one, yeah, the beaver wasn't, you know, biting nobody. The beaver wasn't trying to hurt nobody. The beaver was literally actively walking around, almost what seemed like he was enjoying it, from person to person to person. We would pet him, and he would walk to the next person and like kind of rub up against them, and we would pet him, and you know, so on and so forth all the way around. And you know, it was just really good. I mean, he was very perky. He wasn't acting sick. He wasn't acting hurt. Now, granted, also, you know, we were young and dumb, and there's things that we didn't know that we know now. I would never recommend doing this with another animal, but you know, this is something that did happen to us as kids. And then the other thing that I could not believe was that Mom was allowing us to have this animal walking around, this wild animal walking around in the living room on her floor. For those of you that don't know my mother loves animals, just not inside the house. About the only thing we were allowed to have inside the house growing up was like a guinea pig or a bird. But that was kind of more of a special deal. That didn't happen very often. But dogs, cats, other critters, and animals and stuff, no way. I guess we were allowed to have fish. But Mom did not want animals in the house because, it don't take long for an animal to smell bad, and you got to bathe them. And then you got, like an aquarium if you have, for like us when we had guinea pigs, we had to have, fresh, bedding material in there pretty regularly, or else it started to stink, and Mom did not like the stink. So the fact that Mom was allowing us to let that beaver walk around in her living room, that alone was amazing, because that was so out of character for my mom. But hearing my mom laugh, and then there was a part of her, you could tell she was pretty upset at the fact that me and my buddy at the time were willing to do something so incredibly stupid like catch a beaver with our bare hands, no trap, no nothing, literally just plop down in the water and pick him up. The fact that that happened, she wasn't happy about that, but the fact that we were okay and everything, it kind of made the emotions light. And then of course several pictures and things later, the one thing Mom told us was, all right, son, you gotta take that thing back to where you found him. Okay. And so that was exactly what we did. We picked up the beaver, and we took him back to the pond where we had found him, and we walked him all the way back. We did not go up the road that the dog was on. We actually ended up going through the woods, even though it was not the path of least resistance. We ended up just going up through the woods to avoid that big dog. We wasn't so much worried about the little dog, but the big dog was a little something to be worried about. Yeah, that was a pretty interesting experience. And like I said, it's something I don't condone now, especially, any wild animal, can be potentially very dangerous. And so that's not something you don't want to stick yourself in that situation where, you could be hurt like that. We all see those small animals and those baby animals, and we're like, oh, we can take it and protect it and care for it and nurture it and raise it. And I'm not saying you can't, but there's a high probability that that animal will not make it afterwards. I will say, after that experience, I do remember going back to that pond several times throughout the course of like 2 years. And actually, that beaver stayed there the entire time. And for the first couple months when I was going back, that beaver would actually come up and swim right in front of me while I was fishing. And, of course, I would throw bread and chips and things in the water, and he'd come up and eat them and stuff. But really, after that, after a few months, he kind of got to the point to where when we showed up, he kind of disappeared. Or if I showed up, he just disappeared. So very fortunate that animal did live to see another day, and like I said, he did make it a couple of years after that. And then I actually had stopped, I had lost permission to hunt and fish on that property, so we no longer did that anymore out there. So, I don't know how long that beaver lived, or, I doubt he's still alive now. That was, that was going on 15 years ago. So, yeah, pretty crazy to think about. 15 years ago. That seems like it was just the other day. And that was definitely a story that my mother loved to tell, because it was just one of those things that she was so blown away that her boy and his best friend at the time grabbed a beaver like that. We all hear about the horror stories about people getting bit and chewed up by beavers, mainly when noodling. Hand grabbing, for those of you that might not be in the state of Oklahoma, we call it noodling over here. Noodling is the act of basically putting your hand in a hole, feeling for a catfish, and hopefully it bites you so you can pull it out. Yeah, and it's about as crazy as it sounds, and let me tell you what, it's a lot of fun. We go noodling every single year. As a matter of fact, we have a couple of kids that we want to take noodling this year that have seen me and Daniel, my brother, do it, and seen some, my friends and all of us getting together and doing it, and these kids want to partake. And when we say kids, we're not talking about like babies. We are talking about young kids, but they want to try it. So one thing that has inspired me to want to get these kids out was, it was last year, the year before. It's crazy to think that my years are already mixed up, but with everything going on, blah, 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 it just makes it difficult. But one thing that inspired me and talking about moms and Mother's Day and things like that, was when we actually had the opportunity to go noodling with Ashley Jones. For those of you that don't know who Ashley Jones is if you've ever watched Swamp People on the History Channel, if you remember the tall redhead, her partner is Ronnie. That is Ashley Jones, Ashley Deadeye Jones. We had the opportunity to go noodling with her and hang out with them. A great experience, great time. We've got to hang out with them on multiple occasions now, and they are some amazing people. But, we had went noodling with them, and they actually had an area designated specifically for the younger kids, so that the younger kids can get out there and live that experience of noodling, and have a good time doing it. And it was awesome. Especially, with Ashley and, some of the other people that they had introduced us to, of course, being mothers and with children out there fishing and noodling and everything. They were all into it and all about it. And I tell you what, no, I'm not a mother, but it inspired me to want to do those kind of things as well, not just on the hunting side and not just on the fishing side with like regular fishing poles, but in the noodling realm. You know what? Let's find an area where we can have it set up, or it is set up, I should say, in a way that we can get these kids active in noodling and teach them the do's and don'ts, the ins and outs, things that you should and shouldn't do. And then also just teach them generally, the idea that this is a dangerous sport and there is an amount of respect that you have to give to Mother Nature in order to somewhat do this safely. And, I believe the way Ashley and them were doing it over there in Mississippi was truly a perfect way as to get young people started in noodling. Absolutely perfect. And that is our plan to do that again this year. I can hear my mother now talking about them grandbabies. Now, let me tell you what, my mother, when it came to her grandbabies, don't get me wrong, she loved her children. She loves every single one of us. I honestly believe that, all of her children were absolutely the best thing that ever hit planet Earth. I'm sure if you was to have asked her that, that's exactly what she would have said. She was always grateful and thankful and almost prideful in the most Christian way you can explain pride. I know pride comes before the fall, and we're not supposed to be prideful or braggadocious in these types of things. But mother, however you want to say it, Mama was very much so indeed proud of her kids' talents, her kids' God-given talents, especially in like the music world. All of us kids were very musically inclined, and she was absolutely proud of that. And as I feel like any mother would and or should be. But now let me tell you what, those grandbabies, us kids don't stack up to nothing to what that woman thought about her grandbabies. Those grandbabies were the twinkle in that woman's eye. She loved her grandbabies. I'm not going to say more than she loved her kids, but I'm going to tell you what, there was a very special bond between that mother and every single one of her grandbabies. And every single one of her grandbabies to this day still love and miss her and talk about her very regularly, as much so as she, I'm sure, did every single day while she was here with us. One thing that I will never forget that had happened was, this was just a few years ago. Me and my brother had gone noodling, and we had caught a couple of really nice sized flathead that day. Both my brother and myself had caught our personal best flathead catfish that day while noodling. And I'll never forget Mom seeing the post. Well, I say seeing the post. I always texted Mom and sent her pictures of everything. And so I sent her the pictures of me and my brother holding up these huge fish. And she makes this post on Facebook about it. And she is just bragging up a storm. And one thing I'll never forget her telling me about that was she could not believe how big those fish was. I mean, now granted, don't get me wrong, they were big fish. They really was. I mean, anybody would look at those fish and say, yep, those are big fish. Now, here's where I'm going to stir the pot a little bit. Yes, we did eat those flathead catfish, and I really don't care who says what. Those catfish, size doesn't matter. Size does not matter. I don't care if it's 5 pounds or 500 pounds. If you ever catch a 500-pound flathead, I would like to come shake your hand. Um, but it doesn't matter. It's all about preparation, and I've said that for years, and it goes into the same with wild game. It all goes into preparation, and thankfully for me, because of my mother, I know how to prepare wild game. And now my family wasn't big into hunting, and they weren't big into fishing, but I'm going to tell you what, we were big into eating. Now, none of us are just completely fat and obese. I'm probably the heaviest one of our family, stacking in at around 230, 240. And, I'm probably the heaviest one. And, I'm not going to say I'm, fat, but I'm not necessarily out of shape either. So we loved eating, but we were also very healthy. And, but one thing Mom knew how to do was cook. And wild game, when I started getting to the age to where I was hunting, like I said, I didn't grow up in a hunting family. I didn't grow up in a fishing family. I can honestly count on probably one or two hands the number of times that me and Dad went fishing or hunting. Dad was always working, sometimes 3 and 4 jobs, on top of holding down, a position there at the church as the pastor. So, Dad was always constantly working, preparing for sermons, getting ready for Sunday, getting ready for Wednesday, if we were having revival, and then just like I said, picking up odd jobs here and there, sometimes 3 and 4 jobs at a time. Dad was working a lot, so, we didn't go fishing or hunting a lot. Of course, me and Mom, we went fishing in a couple of times. Mom never did go do any hunting or anything like that. But anytime I brought wild game home, didn't matter if it was rabbit, squirrel, deer, pig, fish, ducks, geese. It didn't matter what it was. If I wanted to eat it, you better believe that woman was willing to prepare it for me. And let me tell you what, I miss those days. I miss those days so much because that woman made the best food on the face of the planet. And if you were not lucky enough to be able to eat this woman's food, then you have no idea what I'm talking about. But just about every single person listening to this podcast right now that has eaten that woman's food will tell you there is no other person on the face of the planet that can stack up to her meals. I'm sorry, Gordon Ramsay. I love your food. I love watching you cook. I love learning from you. But Gordon Ramsay, your food does not stack up to Mama's cooking. And in all honesty, I believe that every kid should feel that way about their mother's food. But there's something different here, I'm telling you. There's something special about this woman's food that will never, nobody else's food will ever amount to her food. It just kind of is what it is. But, because of that, though, because of her style of cooking, and when I started getting old enough and I started bringing these animals home when I was going out hunting by myself, Mom would actually show me how to prepare how to prepare this fresh game. Not just store-bought meat, but fresh game. Fresh veggies from the garden. It didn't matter what it was. Fresh, Mom was teaching me how to do it. And because of that, I now have a knowledge and a love for cooking, especially wild or fresh game, wild vegetation, or even something I've gardened myself, whether it be aquatic animals or whether it be land animals or flying animals. It didn't matter. Mom took the time to show me how to do it. And to this day, that is one thing that I hold strong with, is my ability to make a really good meal out of wild game. I actually have people that will not eat deer meat. They think it's too gamey. They will not eat deer meat. But let me tell you this, when they come over to my house, they eat the deer meat. Or if I bring food over to their house, they eat the deer meat. And their words are, "This does not taste like deer." So that's why I say I don't care how big the animal is. I don't care how big the fish is. It's all in your preparation. And that is one thing that Mother taught me. That is one thing she taught me to do with my food is prepare it. If you prepare it correctly, you don't have to worry about the gamey flavor. You see, here's the truth of the matter. Just a couple years ago, I shot a really nice buck that was in full rut, nasty, stinky, neck swelled up the size of a stinking, beach ball. He was just a big old deer. And like I said, stunk. When I walked up to him, I could smell his musk. Ooh. And of course, cutting his meat, talking to a few other people like, oh, that meat's gonna be horrible. And I'm like, you think I'm gonna waste it? No way. I'm a firm believer. Mom and Dad raised me. If you shoot it, if you catch it, and you plan on killing it or harvesting it, you are going to eat it. It doesn't matter if it's a sparrow or if it's a turkey or if it's a frog or if it's a deer. If you kill it, you're going to eat it, and that's how we was. You don't waste things. You don't waste the opportunity to have meat on your table. And I'm going to tell you what, like I said, I've got a couple friends that they don't eat deer meat. And for those of you that have deer hunted for a long time or any length of time, or you've eaten the meat, you've benefited from being able to eat the meat for a long time, then you know that everybody and their dog says that a big buck, old buck that's in rut isn't worth eating. And I'm going to tell you what, I have friends that will not eat deer meat, but they ate that big old nasty buck. Why? Well, because it's all in preparation. And it's not a matter of making the meat taste any different. You see, the thing about preparing, and this is what Mom taught me, so much of the things that you do to prepare your food, it isn't so much what you're putting on the meat to make it taste different, as much as you're taking the gaminess or some of that, I can't remember what it's called. If you can remember what it's called, leave it down in the comments so that I can look at it and try to remember. But there's I'm going to take out of deer meat. In the actual meat, there's not blood. Blood runs through the veins and things like that. But in the meat, when we quote unquote bleed out the meat, that juice, that red juice that's inside the meat, it's not actually blood. So, but there are ways to draw that out, and Mom taught me those ways, and she taught me how to prepare it and soak it in different things to help draw it out, and even start soaking it in one thing and then end by soaking it in another thing. And then by the time you make that roast, by the time you make those tacos, by the time you make that steak, by the time you make those kebabs, by the time you make the chicken fried steak or whatever it is you're wanting to make, you might know it's deer, but you're also going to know that it's absolutely delicious. And so for those of you that say, hey, you're willing to try it, maybe you've never tried it before, but you're willing to try it, then get with me and I'll share with you some recipes and some tricks, tips, and spills over some things that Mom taught me. And it's things that even now, every time I cook, we do this. We use these tips, tricks, and spills. And I'll be more than happy to share with you those things. Let's get into another story real quick. This happened just about a year before Mom passed away. Mom had called me and said, John, I want to go fishing. No. Let's see. I guess when she called me, she said, hey, John, I got a question. And I said, what? She goes, those spoonbill platypus? And I was like, the spoonbill? I said, you mean the duckbill platypus? And she said, yeah, the duckbill platypus. She goes, you know where we can go catch some of those? I really want to go catch some of those. And I said, the duckbill platypus? She said, yeah. And I was like, Mom, I don't know where to go for a duckbill platypus. I've never done that. She goes, oh, yes, you do. You and Daniel and your team and all the other people, y'all go out there every year and catch a bunch of them, and you catch some real big ones. And I was like, oh, you mean the spoonbill? And I started laughing, and of course she was like, oh, yeah, spoonbill. And I was like, yeah. And so I was like, yeah, what about it? She's like, I want to go catch them. I want to go catch some. I want to go have a good time doing it. Now, at this time, my mom and dad haven't done any real fishing in over literally 30 years before I was born. We might stop by a pond, or something and, go grab a few what we call perch. here in Oklahoma, here in Oklahoma and northern Texas, I should say, if it fits on your hook as bait, it's considered perch. So for all you sticklers out there, I don't really care about what you call perch, whether it's by the book or not. But if you must know, goggle eye perch and sunfish are what I'm referring to here. But anyways, we might go catch something like that for a few minutes, but other than that, they hadn't done any real fishing in going on 30 years. So when she called me and told me that, I was like, you know what? I know who I'm going to call. I'm going to call Zach Rumpel with BZ Guide Service, because his setup, I'm not saying there aren't better setups out there, and I'm not saying there aren't, just as cool of people to go out with, and I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is, for the people that I know and the people that I'm willing to go with, Zach Rumpel is the best of the best when it comes to catfishing, spoonbilling, crappie fish, whatever you're wanting to do in the northern Oklahoma region. Zach with BZ Guide Service is the guy to call. They know their stuff. Oh my goodness, and they will get you on the fish. It never fails. It never fails. I have been with Zach, a handful of times now, and each time we come home with more than enough fish to eat on for a long time. So anyway, I called Zach and I said, hey, I'm wanting to get mom and dad out on some spoonbill. Can we make this happen? And he told me, he said, dude, I don't care when you want to go. I just need you to tell me, let's go. Granted, I've known Zach for quite some time. Zach and I have actually, we're pretty good friends. So it was pretty nice for him to just tell me, hey, I don't care. You know what? You just tell me what date and we're going to go. He was willing to put anything aside to take out my parents. And I'm certainly glad he did. That definitely made the moments even that much more special. But we get out there, and of course, I believe Dad was the first one to catch a spoonbill, and then we turn around and Mom caught a spoonbill, and or maybe it was Dad and then Michelle. I don't remember. It's not important. The one that was important to me for what we're talking about now is the spoonbill that Mom caught. So we're sitting there and we're trolling, and about that time, the line, the drag just starts going off, zzz, and it's just taking off. And I pick up the rod and reel out of the rod holder to hand it back to Mom. And as I did that was when it dawned on me, because I'm, trying to not let go of this rod and reel to hand it to Mom. This is a very large fish. It was not just no small dink of a spoonbill. And for those of you that don't know, spoonbill get big. Now, what we consider big, like down here in southern Oklahoma, if you catch a 25, 30 pound fish, whether it be a flathead or blue cat, you've caught a big fish. That's generally speaking, that's a big fish. But when we go spoonbill fishing, we're catching, sometimes these fish are literally 80, 90. I have personally seen a couple of them pulled out of the water that were between 100 and 110 pounds. My personal best, I believe, is 86.2 or 86.3, something like that, pounds. So, we're going after a big fish. And so what I call a small spoonbill is going to be anything under 30 pounds. Well, when I grabbed that rod, I realized instantly this fish was no 30-pound fish. This was a good fish. It was rip and drag. And I'm sitting there trying to, hold it to where I can get it back to Mom without dropping, one of Zach's rods and then it going off into the water. I finally got it back to my mom, and I'm holding on to the pole. And she is reeling in, and laughing the entire step of the way. And, we get a little ways in, and the fish starts pulling, and she starts freaking out. What's going on? I'm like, Mom, that's the fish. He's pulling against you. The fight of the century, folks, when it comes to a reeling in a fish, the fight on the end of that line. This was the fight of the century, and we actually have it uploaded to our YouTube page. You need to go check it out. I don't remember exactly what it's titled, but I believe it's something like Mom and Dad Went on an Adventure with Us or something like that. You'll see the thumbnail. The thumbnail it's got the words dinosaur fish on there and some pictures of me leaning over a boat with a spoonbill right there and Dad reeling in, and I think the pictures of Mom is up there. So just go check it out and you'll see it. It was a lot of fun watching Mom reeling that fish. Well, then at one point you can tell she's getting tired, and I don't remember how it got brought up, but Mom's still reeling in, and Zach said, "Don't look at that foot counter," and because on top of the rod there's a foot counter to tell you how much line is still out. And he said it'll make you disappointed. And then he leans over Mom's shoulder and goes, "Oh, you've only got about 200 more foot to go." And you could just tell Mom was like, "Oh my goodness, I hope not," because she's reeling and reeling and reeling. She's fighting that thing as hard as she can. And oh my goodness. So we get the fish up. We tell Mom to take a few steps back. Mom takes a few steps back. She's holding pressure on the fish. The fish had gotten wrapped up in the line, so I ended up getting down there and helping Zach, untangle the fish and get ready to pull the fish up. And Zach's got the fish, and he does it jokingly, but he slips, makes it kind of look like a real thing, slips and like falls and like lets his hand fall down into the water, makes it look like he lost the fish, and he goes, "Oh no, I lost it." And it was just dead quiet on the boat. And then I'm just kidding. Here he is, and he pulls him up out of the water. When he pulls that fish up out of the water, let me tell you what, Mom's eyes. I wish we had a camera on the fish. We didn't have a camera on Mom's face, but I wish y'all could have seen Mom's face because her eyes got as big as softballs. And let me tell you what, that was a priceless moment in time. What am I going to do with that? Of course, everybody on the boat is just throwing a big old fit, having a good time. And, so we ended up putting, a waterproof jacket over Mom's lap and letting her hold the fish. And you could tell she was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, oh my goodness, this thing is huge. Definitely the biggest fish that she had ever caught in her life. And I was so honored that my parents contacted me to say, "Hey, John, we want to go fishing." All of her kids, or I should say all of her boys, we all go fishing. And, me and my next oldest brother, we do a lot of hunting. So, she could have asked either one of my brothers or even my sister and her husband to go out and go do some fishing or something. But, Mom asked me. And so when Mom asked me to do something like that, of course, I'm not going to say no. Who would say no to their mother that wants to go fishing with them? I wouldn't do that. If you would do that, you're crazy. But nevertheless, and going in with that video, at her funeral, we actually played that small clip. And when it came time for Zach to pull that fish up over the side of the boat, of course, everybody, and I'm going to start crying right here, but everybody started clapping and cheering and hooping and hollering. And, it went from a very sad time, talking about my mother's funeral, went from a very sad time to a time of, my goodness, that woman caught that. And then the pastor at the church there stood up, and I don't remember the exact words, but it was something to the extent of, "That woman has outfished almost every person in this room." And and just how impressive it was, And I'm gonna tell you, that woman, she may not have been super outdoorsy in the hunting and fishing realm, but camping, mountain hiking, they've been doing that since before I was even born. And then throughout my life, every year they were making a handful of trips every year to go camping and hiking and sightseeing and all those wonderful things. And so I may not come from a hunting or fishing background with my family, but I definitely had a mother who was outdoorsy and definitely had a very strong love for my passion. She accepted my passion and my love in the outdoors, and definitely was our biggest fan as we formed Outdoor Genetics. And even to this day, I still feel like there's times whenever we're hunting and fishing, Mom is always right there. And it gets to be a time where, I can't wait to just tell her about the day. Tell her what happened. And so, anyways, well, we are encroaching up on around 40 minutes of this podcast. And let me tell you what, I know I've only shared a couple of stories about Mom for this Mother's Day, but there's so many more. I could probably do a 10-hour podcast by myself over things relating to Mom and outdoor adventures and things that's happened with Mom, camping and hiking and four-wheeling. And I'm just going to throw this quick little one out there. Like when we were four-wheeling when I was real young, couldn't drive the four-wheeler by myself yet, but I was riding on the back with Mom. Mom popped a wheelie. When she popped a wheelie, I fell off the back of the four-wheeler, and I was super mad, and I stood up and I was just wiping my knees off and wiping my face and chest off because I just hit the dirt, and I was just saying stupid, 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 and I wasn't allowed to talk like that back then. I was just a kid, a real young kid, and Mom was laughing so hard because I was so serious, because I was just going stupid, 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 that she didn't even get me in trouble for saying stupid, 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 even though I wasn't allowed to say that. But nevertheless, there's a lot of stories that I could continue on sharing, and then if I was to sit down with my brothers and my sister and even some of my closer relatives, I'm sure we would have enough stories to last a week's worth of podcasts. I'm sure we could probably do a 4-hour podcast every single day, but that just goes to show you how important this woman was in not just my life and not just my wife's life, but in my sister's life and not just the immediate family, but extended family. And it goes so much further than that. All the people that, called her Mom, it wasn't just a, hey Mom. No, it was truly a term of endearment, a motherly love, a motherly bond, even between my friends and her, a woman of caring compassion and a loving nature, a sweet-spirited love. Even to the people she really didn't know, she was Mom. So, I believe there's something to be said about a mom that way. And that is a part of the reason why on this Mother's Day, I wanted to take the time to do this podcast. So to all you mothers out there on this Mother's Day, I hope y'all have a great day. You get to wrap your arms around your kids. Get to wrap your arms around your grandbabies. Tell them you love them. Because I'm going to tell you what, as a son to the world's greatest mother, us kids, we love y'all too. Y'all have a happy Mother's Day. And we'll be seeing y'all again soon on the Outdoor Genetics Podcast.